Nick, do you think anyone watches the middle of the pack videos? So,
Oh,
on
probably
the top
not.
100? Probably not. We're doing this for nobody. This is 70 to 61.
Snick and Mud's top 100 games. But does anyone care what they have to say? I know I don't. Cause they may dab, they might scream, they may say some things that are plain wrong. Dab on it, dab on it. But they are dumb bing bongs. My teacher's better.
If you did watch this, comment below, because we're not entirely sure if you were going to watch
if you're
these middle
here,
ones.
guess what? You're somebody, because the people who aren't watching, they're nobody, but you're somebody. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike.
Get ready. I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph, and we are, of course, joking with that. We're here continuing our top 100 games of all time.
We are.
Subjectively, objectively, the best games ever. The best games of all time.
Ever made. Yes, and we are partnering with Tabletop Alliance for our top 100. This is an awesome nonprofit that works to get board games in schools. They work with teachers all around the country.
Really cool stuff.
And they work to get games into schools so that kids have after-school program stuff to do. And just games are a great way to learn. And so there is a donate button on the right side of your screen over there if you want to donate to them. We're trying to raise $2,000. Every dollar helps one kid. And so we've already raised, hopefully, I assume $100,000. And so
minimum.
minimum.
Why not blow the goal out of the water?
Why not? You can also donate your games if you want to. There's going to be a lot more information. We made a video. You can follow the card above here.
Check it
We
out.
made a video all about Tabletop Alliance and how you can give if you want to. But you can also donate your games directly. But follow that link to watch that video to find out more. They're super awesome. And Mike, I think we should just get right into our number 70, right?
We got 70. We
Oh
got
my gosh,
games
we're
to talk about.
finally not into trash.
Finally getting into, like, pretty bad games.
Yeah.
Still pretty bad.
All right, let's get number 70. My number 70 is a game that I think is as high as it is because we just got to play the expansion. I think it's called The Expansion. This is Targi.
Oh, yeah.
Targi is great.
I'm surprised by this.
Yeah, me too, kind of. I like Targi, but I always feel like you liked it more than me.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I really like Targi because I think it's just it's a really cool two-player like worker placement game. But the worker placement's kind of interesting. You have essentially a border of cards around a central area of more cards, and on your turn, you're gonna place one of your Targis out onto a card on there, and that's gonna have something you're gonna do. So it's a worker placement spot ultimately.
Sometimes gaining resources and
Indeed. And you're going to have 3 different targets you're going to put out. You're going to go back and forth putting them out. And then the areas that they essentially cross. So if I have one here, and then one here, you're going to essentially draw invisible lines. And then wherever they cross, you're also going to get to do the things on the cards in the middle there. So it's like this weird kind of like tactical maneuvering game where you're like, okay, I really need this card. So I have to put this here. And then I also have to put one over on his side or this side. And you can't be directly across from your opponent. So if Mike puts one here, I can't put it here. And it's this game where you're trying to collect these cards and you're turning in resources like dates and pepper and salt.
Yeah.
To get these cards, and these cards are going to go into your little tableau. They're going to be end game scoring for the most part. Some of them have some special abilities on them as well. But you're trying to collect sets for end game scoring, and then you're essentially going to be going around, and you're going to do like 12 rounds or so, and then that's the end of the game. And it's really fun, really tactical. And then the expansion now adds more stuff. There's like a Targia out, and you can go to where she is. And one thing that's nice about the expansion is it opens up the game a little bit more.
Just a hair.
The game is very restrictive in a good way, but it's very restrictive, very tight, very kind of like tough. Like, oh, Mike went to that one spot. I'm kind of screwed now. The expansion adds a little bit more. There's like water as a resource now. You can turn in water to get other stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can go to the Targia to exchange some stuff, and it opens up, makes it slightly less brutal. And it's really nice. And there's just some more stuff going on. And we played the expansion. I was like, wow, I already really like Targi. I will never not play with this expansion.
Agreed. The sand dune cards are great because, like, you're going to you'll put a Targi figure over there, so you're going to forego, like, one of the intersection points. But they're really powerful. And they're
really
like one-off
powerful
cards. So it's like, you know what? Like, the way the grid's working out, it's not going to be great for me to go over to the sand dune. So it just gives you a couple of different avenues to explore, so you're a little less stuck, but it's not like a free-for-all, like everything's super open.
No.
And it gives you just interesting choices to make, keeps the heart of the game absolutely intact. I fully agree with you. Like, Targi expansion, no need to go back.
Always going to be in there. It's really good. I really like Targi a lot. I think it's just an interesting game that, again, kind of feels like no other game. It feels very unique in its own way.
Sure.
Yeah, I really like Targi. Targi's outstanding, and with the expansion particularly, that's kind of what I think. I think it probably would have been out of my top 100 if we didn't have that expansion.
Yeah.
It really makes it really good. That's my number 70.
Nice. My number 70 is a worker placement game. We've talked about the West Kingdom trilogy, but the game that set up I think Garfield Games before was Raiders of the North Sea.
It did, yes.
So Raiders of the North Sea is a fantastic worker placement game where you're only given one worker, which is like already kind of different. Usually you have kind of a pool of workers. Right. Or if you're playing Architects of West Kingdom, you have like 20 workers.
Right.
So you have one worker here. And there's a really fun ebb and flow to Raiders of the North Sea. It's Viking themed. Basically, you're going to be going several turns in a row of collecting resources, getting a crew set up, and all these different things, and then going and doing a raid, and you're going to turn in resources, spend stuff. You might lose some of your crew and all that jazz to plunder and get resources like gold and stuff like that, and get kind of usually a better worker. And you can roll dice, and that's how you're going to get your main points is by going on these raids. So you're kind of setting yourself up, going on a raid. That's going to kind of deplete your stuff. Go get some stuff set up, go on a raid, and then you kind of follow that ebb and flow of the game. The thing I like about having the one worker is if you're kind of going in town, you can place a worker down and activate the spot like the silversmith, get some money. And then you have to end your turn with a worker. So what you're going to do is pick up a different worker. You can't pick up the same one. A different worker and activate that action space. And so you'll always end your turn with a worker just like you begin. And the whole kind of using one worker at a time, you get to play something and then pick something up doing like 2 actions, to me has always been really fun.
Yeah.
It's always been like, oh,
It's
that's
simple.
so exciting.
You place one, you pick one up. And that's what the two
And the
things you're
actions down kind of in the town side of the border are really simple. They're generally resource gaining stuff. You might be able to increase your armor level, which helps you when you go on those raids, because now you're stronger and stuff like that. And again, you're getting crew, which all come with different abilities. They might help you out with like doing specifically outposts. If you're going to go raid an outpost, you're going to get this boon or this benefit, or a berserker or something that like wants to get knocked out, because then they go back to your hand, you can play them out again and stuff like that. And it's just really simple. It's kind of gain some resources, go spend those resources. You can take some of those things like the gold and the cattle and things that you get from those raids and then turn them in to complete these like tiles for points. Or there's a little bit of set collection within themselves. It's really fun. Ultimately not too complicated, so it's a great way for us, I think, to introduce the idea of worker placement.
Yes,
because the spots are pretty simple. Everything kind of goes down smooth. There's a little bit of dice rolling and luck in there. It's really fun. Raiders of the North Sea, really, again, for Garfield, set the stage for like them to build into this amazing future that they've had.
They're on to their 3rd trilogy now.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, so that's my number 70 is Raiders of the North Sea.
All right, let's get into to a hilarious number.
My number 69 is the Manhattan Project Energy Empire.
I was surprised this was on your list. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty sure it didn't make mine.
There's some things with this game. It's a worker placement game.
It's very good.
It's very good, and there was a couple things that we were for sure playing wrong in the early days, and it made the game worse. Like it made the game
sure did.
harder, weirder. It just wasn't good, and we've now sorted those things out.
Yes.
And now we're playing the game how it's meant to be, and I'm like, oh, this is better.
Yeah, it is.
It's just a solid game. It's a solid worker
solid.
placement game where you're putting workers out onto different areas of the board that might have an escalating cost, because if Nick had placed a worker there down before, I have to place more workers or use energy. I could put a worker with some energy beneath it. Basically, I have to spend my kind of resources to put more things down than what you did. And if someone else was to go, they need to put more stuff down still. So the types of actions you can do, or it's going to be all sorts of stuff about building up an energy empire, kind of like a power grid where you're going to have different types of energy that are produced using coal or oil, or you can do nuclear energy. And the thing that's fun about this is it incorporates a lot of the environmental impacts of if you're running gas and oil. You're going to pollute and stuff, and you're going to pollute your little landscape, and then you have to make efforts in doing recycling and stuff to clean up the air, the ground, and the water.
Negative points.
Which will give you negative points if you don't clear those out. So there's a balance of that, and I really enjoy the fact that it does touch on, even in its abstract way, like the environmental impact.
It's like, hey, we need energy.
Of producing all this energy.
Like, we need energy, but like we got to make sure we're not destroying the planet at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
there's a bunch of cards you can get which give you additional worker placement placement spots that only you can do. And then again, kind of like a whistle mount, which we talked about before.
That's what I went to go check. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is Luke Laurie, right? I was like, yeah.
Luke Laurie loves putting workers out
right.
and then recalling workers and doing stuff when
That's
you do
all I
your
was like,
recall action.
this is Luke Laurie.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Luke Laurie has a style. Also worked on Cryo, I believe.
Yep.
So it's a Luke Laurie special. But I really do enjoy the whole thing. When you bring back your workers, you're going to generate energy. You're going to roll out your little different energy dice, which will be based on the type of energy. You're going to roll out a blue die, which is like hydro energy and stuff, which is a cleaner energy. Your green dice are like wind energy. It's not as strong, but it's not going to pollute anything. You can get, nuclear, which might like really mess up stuff up, because if you roll like a little nuke symbol, you're going to have to put a super pollution in the air.
You got to spend a couple turns cleaning
that one up. So it's really fun to kind of go through like spending the energy you produce from rolling those dice out, and then spending them out on the board to get cards, which give you different worker placement spots and stuff like that. And then you're really just trying to push your nation forward on kind of UN track, because you're trying to be like the leader in like clean energy.
Like some achievements you can go for.
Stuff like that. It's kind of standard worker placement, but it's really fun. And the whole like put stuff out and then recall it and do some stuff when you recall
it's just classic.
Is a really cool thing. And I see why Luke Laurie and the designers they work with have used it again and again, because it creates really interesting choices of like, ooh, I could do this special thing when I recall. Maybe I'll do that now. Maybe I'll wait. Including like scoring achievements, you only do it when you recall. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing for sure. Yeah. So that's my number 69.
Yeah, I like Manhattan Project. It's in my it's like 150 or so for me. I think if we played it more often, I think it probably would have peaked into my top 100. We just don't play it very often. I do every time we talk about it. Every time we do play, I'm always like, oh, that's right. This game is really, really good. Yeah. So. Manhattan's great. My number 69, I believe Mike talked about last list or maybe 2 lists ago, but this is Wonderland's War.
Yeah.
Wonderland's War is a big Druid City game where super, super crazy overproduced.
Big time.
And this is a game where you're in Alice in Wonderland kind of world, and you are battling over these different areas because everyone's going a little bit mad, and you're starting to battle and stuff like that. And it's kind of like Battle Quacks of Quedlinburg, as James Hudson of Druid City Games talks about, where you have these chips, these teeny little chips. You put them in a bag, and then when you are battling in these areas for like to get supremacy there, you're pulling out these chips, and all the chips do different stuff. But kind of like Quacks of Quedlinburg, the chips never change, but like their abilities can change.
Yes, depending on which cards.
And there's like 4 different abilities for each chip, and so depending on what game you're playing, they might do different stuff. It'll all be kind of related to the same stuff usually, but like it's very interesting. And so you can really go heavy into certain different kinds of chips, and then you can also like forge those chips to put them on your main board, which will unlock your special abilities, because everyone has
them in your bag now. And
exactly, because everyone has as a character, you can be like Alice or the Mad Hatter, and everyone has special abilities.
Yeah.
And you're unlocking these things, and it's just really, really cool. The production value, of course, of Druid City Games is like off the charts. It's one of those games where it's like you really should get the one with the minis and stuff, because it does make the game so much nicer.
The standees look really nice, actually.
They do,
but those minis are cool.
And this is a game we played this when I was on Kickstarter.
We don't usually push minis on people. I'm like,
they're really cool. I want to paint them
so fanciful and stuff.
Yeah.
They create the Manny Tremblay art like really translates into the minis. They like. That's not an easy thing to do. To create something into this 3D space and have it look the kind of cartoony way they look is, I think, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's so good. And Wonderland's War is just fun. It's just really, really, really fun. It just works. It's one of those games where it's like
you let it be fun. Don't take it too serious.
Yeah, and it's one of those games where when you see it, and when we first played it like years ago, we played it when it was on Kickstarter, and then we finally got the game. It was one of those things where I'm like, does this work? Like, does this actually work that we played? I'm like, no, this actually does work quite well. It's one of those games that doesn't just live on the production alone. It's really quite good on top of that, as most Druid City games do. They're very overproduced, but they're usually very good on top of that. Wonderland's War is 69. It's really, really outstanding. I like it a lot.
Fantastic. That's our 69s. Let's get into 68.
All right. 68 is by one of my favorite designers, and I feel like many people's one of their favorite designers. This is by John DeClaire. This is Spass Bass. Spass Bass.
Does anyone like John DeClaire? They should. He's amazing.
He's a wonderful man.
Space Base is great.
Space Base is great. We just played it recently again because it just had been a long time. Although I'm pretty sure we played it after I made my list. But this is a game where you are building out a little space dock, and you're docking ships in your space, and then on your turn, you're rolling out these 2 dice, and then say you rolled a 3 and a 4, you can either activate your 3 ship and your 4 ship or your 7 ship, and they're going to give you mostly 3 different things. You can get money, which is how you buy more ships. You can get income, which is basically the base your money can ever be at. So if you have 10 income, you can never go below 10
if you buy
money.
something, you're going to wipe out all your money regardless of the cost of what you purchased.
And you can get points, which is how you're going to win the game. And so there's all these different cards, and you're slotting those cards into spots. So you get this card's an 8 card. It'll go into your 8 slot, and the card that is there will go up, turn upside down, and go behind your board. Because one thing that's really nice about Space Base is there's no downtime. Because whenever someone rolls, you get to activate your cards that are behind your board.
Yeah, things you've kind of...
So if Mike then rolls 2 4s, I can activate my 4 card twice, or I can activate my 8 card.
As long as you've deployed something there. But
exactly.
Anything red is something that activates
anything behind your board. Yeah, and so it's really, really nice because you're always invested in what's going on because you want to see if you can do stuff. So by the time it gets back around to you, you might have been able to activate a couple of your cards that are behind your board. And so you're starting off with some money, and then you get to roll your dice yourself, and you get to activate your main ships. And it's just really, really fun, really good engine builder. There's a ton of different cards. There's also like the Shy Pluto expansion, which is like this little campaign expansion, but you can just add the stuff in afterwards. A lot of the things from that, I'm like, we'll just always play with these because they're just really fun and really cool. Space Base is one of those games that just goes over really, really well with pretty much everyone you play it with. Again, there's some people out there who don't like it, of course, but it's just like, it just goes down smooth. It just works. It's just really, really fun. John DeClaire was talking at one point, like, want to do kind of like maybe a Space Base Express, because there is some cards where, like, you put these charges on cards, you essentially have to activate them a couple times to be able to do their main activation.
Yeah.
And I would not hate, like, a toned down version of Space Base that mostly just simplifies all the cards or just keeps nothing but the simpler cards, because I just want to build this cool engine, make the game quick and fun. And so honestly, John D, if you're watching this, make that version, put it in Target. I think it'll do really well. And I want to play it. So basically, Space Base is my 68. It's really, really fun.
Nice.
And yeah, it's just outstanding.
Cool. My number 68 is kind of that version. It's an express version of a bigger game and stuff. This is My Little Scythe.
I was pumped this was on your list.
Heck yeah. My Little Scythe is awesome.
It's so good.
It's obviously based on Scythe, and it is a more family weight version of it. It's not like the lightest game or anything, but it's definitely a little bit pared down, especially
it's
compared
still
to
for
Scythe.
like 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. It's not for like 3-year-olds.
It's compared to Scythe a lot lighter and stuff. So it is a similar type of game where you have a little player board, a little dashboard, and you're going to be moving your pawn from different types of actions to take those actions. You might be moving around. You might be producing resources with these dice that you roll to get like apples and gems and stuff.
You're making pies.
You're making pies. Which is fantastic. You can move over to where someone is and have a pie fight with them, which is similar to, again, Scythe. If you win like a pie fight, like you'll get a little trophy instead of like your stars, your achievements, which you're trying to get to 4 achievements. And stuff like that. And there's the quests that are around the board. You're trying to complete quests if you can. You can make deliveries of those pies and those gems to the castle in the middle to get your different achievements. So it does all these kind of Scythe things, but it's set in this like wonderfully colorful and beautiful
it's
world.
So cute. Where you're the animals, you're the
sidekicks of the characters in Scythe. They have like an animal companion, and now
whoever's like the Rustviets have like the tiger. So like the Rustviets in Milo Scythe, you're playing as a cute little chibi tiger because that's who you are. It's so cute.
Yeah. There's a few things in Scythe, My Little Scythe, that I think legitimately are better than Scythe. In Scythe, the Nordic faction always starts in the same place on the board, always. And I get that, because I think if you're thinking about the competitiveness, like you're going to build out strategies based on where you're starting. So if I know I'm the Nordics, I know I need to do this thing or whatever. And this one, like, they can move around where you begin, because like the landscapes is a little less like vital to things. It's a little less important. But I was like, that's actually kind of nice that you can just like start in different areas. It's like more interesting to me. So I'm like, cool, that's neat.
Fair.
I like that you can be rewarded for... if I produce an apple or something, I can choose where those things go. And if I go put an apple in a place where you are, I get a little bit of friendship, which is like the popularity track, a little heart track, your little friendship. I'm being a good friend by producing you some stuff. It's nice. And I think that's a cool like way to kind of mitigate things. I like that when you fight, you lose popularity guaranteed, like your friendship, because you're being mean by fighting. And then there's ways to upgrade your actions in a kind of simplified way than in Scythe would be, where you can put these little tiles like overlay the action you do, which will, again, you're like making pies, which is your power. getting that friendship track up there, delivering goods to the castle, and completing quests to get those.
Honestly, why I like My Little Scythe, I like My Little Scythe a lot. I like Scythe a lot too, but I love My Little Scythe. And one of the reasons why I like it is like I honestly think
less cutthroat.
I honestly think it's a great gateway to Scythe. Like if you were playing with adult, you're planning on playing Scythe with adults. I honestly think it's not a bad idea to play My Little Scythe as a kind of like, a lot of this is similar, especially if you're worried that Scythe might be a little bit too big. Play My Little Scythe to get them like essentially like
into the rhythm of how the game works.
For Scythe, because there's a lot, because it's Scythe, it's like there's still a lot of similarities. There's some differences, but I honestly think like it does a really, really good job of making like a stripped down version of Scythe. And I think it's a really good like intro to Scythe, honestly.
Yeah. I think it's great. In the Sky expansion and stuff, but I think it's like really cute and adorable. I like the look of it better than Scythe.
Like the cutest game ever made.
Because it's just so colorful and wonderful, and the minis are so incredible. It's just really fun. Like I enjoy Scythe just fine. Absolutely enjoy that game. But it's so competitive. It's so cutthroat. And this one is just a little bit, by its nature, less intense, and it's really fun. So yeah, My Little Scythe gets high marks. This is my 68.
All right.
I'll stand by it.
Let's get number 67.
Number 67 is Orleans. Orleans. Orleans is another kind of classic Euro game where you're doing a bunch of Euro game stuff, like getting cheese and wine and turning in that cheese and wine places. And it builds off the bag building mechanism, like kind of similar to you're talking about Quacks of Quedlinburg or Wonderland's War, where you're going to be pulling out followers out of your bag. And then you're going to assign those followers to your big player board to make use of actions. So you do like your sailing action. You need to have certain types of workers, including like one of your water folk. And so you're kind of deciding like, okay, this is what I pulled. This isn't exactly what I wanted. What can I do with this? What actions can I do? Where can I move? What do I focus on? What can I kill? And again, what do we like doing here, Nick? Bumping tracks. There's a bunch of tracks you can bump to get kind of better versions of actions when you activate them in the future. You can start drawing out more chits per turn, per round. Is obviously very useful. You can start gaining more money if you do like the sailing action stuff. You can get all these boons as you kind of work your way down these tracks. And then ultimately, I'm trying to think of like what would be like the focus of this game, because you really are kind of doing a bunch of different stuff.
It kind of depends on what.
I think a lot of it comes down to the kind of scholar track at the bottom of the board.
That's part of it. Is you're trying to get points, but there's a couple different ways you get points. You can collect these citizen tiles, and you'll have citizen tiles. You'll times that by the amount of like outposts or whatever, or trading posts, whatever they're called, out there. You can bump up your development track. There's a whole bunch of different ways to get points. It kind of depends on what you want to focus on. Also, like what game you're playing, because
there's all
one of the nice about Orleans is there is a ton of expansion stuff for it, and they're all really good.
Yeah, the Trade and Intrigue expansion, we use the trade half because you can basically send off your people in the town hall to go to this trade board, which as you complete the different sections of the trade board, you get these like really great boons. So it's a great way to kind of cull your bag a bit of stuff that you're just not using anymore, and really try to get hyper focused. So you have a better chance of drawing knights out because you really want to do knights.
I think there's like pick up and deliver in the Trade and Intrigue one, where it's like there's a couple different like little modules within that one. So now like the main board, there's like pick up and deliver stuff you're doing,
which is cool because you're getting all these goods and stuff. There's obviously the Invasion expansion, which can give you ways to play it.
It's like a whole other game.
There's a two-player specific way to play and a cooperative way to play, where now you're getting all those goods and stuff, but you're kind of dumping them into these storage areas because you're preparing for like this invasion. You're trying to get knights up on your wall to protect the city, and it's a really tough cooperative experience. And I think that's what like ultimately why this game persists is like all the different ways to play are really fun and really valid. And it's kind of like take your pick. For a while, we only played Invasion. We only played it co-op. And now I'm kind of like, at least now, I'm like, I'm sort of done with the co-op for a while.
Fair.
But I'm like really intrigued again by the competitive experience. I'm like, wow, that's interesting how every way you go is good. The solo you played solo
really fun
is really good.
There's like 4 solo scenarios, I think.
It's a lot to explore in this game. So Orleans is my 67.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Orleans is great. My number 67 is High Society. This is a game, I talked about Silver and Gold by Praise Be a little while ago. This is by Rainer Knizia. But this is, again, kind of like Silver and Gold. It's a game that we take everywhere. Like, anytime we're traveling. Like, I was going to Manchester, the UK, alone. I mean, Matthew was going to be there, but I was like, I brought High Society because I was like, well, just in case. That's a game we always will travel with. This is a, there's been a couple of different versions of this game, but it's all the same. It's Rainer Knizia. And essentially, there's going to be something fancy in the middle, like perfume or a haberdashery, or you're going to the see the horses or whatever, some kind of fancy thing, which will be worth points. And then everyone is going to bid on that. And so you say like 10,000 francs, and then Mike has to either pass or bid higher than that. There's only one way around the circle. You don't get to keep going around and around and around and around.
Correct.
And then whoever bids the highest gets that. That's it. It's the whole game. It's just a bidding auction game. That's all it is. But you have a limited amount of money, of course, and so like you can't just like spend. I'm gonna spend everything and just get more money. And you're trying to get points, and there's also some negative ones out there. So there is also like some faux pas that can happen. You don't want those, and so but the basic crux of this game comes down to the end, where it comes down to whoever has the most points wins the game, right?
Of course.
But whoever spent the most money automatically loses. They could have 10 times the amount of points as everyone else. If they spent the most money, you automatically lose. And that little change, it's kind of like QE, which is kind of another big auction game, does a similar thing. But that is such a huge, huge deal in this game because you need to have the most points, but you can't have spent the most money. So that line of trying to bid so you get the points, but not spending the most money is such a fun line to just walk. And again, it's a very simple, very quick game. It's a little filler game, but it just goes over so well. It just always creates giggles, and there's that tough line to walk of trying to spend money to get these points, but not trying to spend the most money is so much fun. And it's just great. And High Society it's one of those games that just goes over well. We bring it everywhere. We play with our brother and sister a lot. The four of us love it. And we just, anytime we're traveling, we're going to PAX Unplugged next month. You better believe High Society is going to be coming because, of course it is. It's this big, it's small, it's easy to teach, it's easy to play. I love High Society so much. And it just works. It just works really, really well.
Excellent.
So that's 67.
67 for both of us. Let's head into 66.
All right, we cruising. Number 66 for me is a game from last year that I feel like we are on an island for. And this is Boone Lake.
Yeah. It's on my list earlier a while back. Yeah.
I feel like we're on an island. I feel like we're the only people who like this game.
We might be, dude. We might be.
I like that. That's fine. I only ever want to play it 2-player anyway, so I'll just play it with Mike. It works out.
It's great.
I really like Boone Lake. Boone Lake is a game by Alexander Pfister, where you are kind of in the pioneering, kind of old westy, kind of theme. You're out in Boone Lake. You're out exploring kind of just big uninhabited lands, and you're essentially putting down settlements, putting down like pastures to have like cattle and stuff like that. You have buildings. You're going to upgrade into like big old outposts and stuff like that, which are worth more points. But this game is, I really like the action selection in this game. There's essentially these action selection tiles, and you'll choose one of them, and that's going to allow you to do something, and then everyone else will get to do essentially a follow action. They'll also get to do usually a lesser version of the action along with you. So it's like, I get to do this, and then all of us get to do this. And so this cool thing is you also, you're always doing something. It's kind of like Space Base I talked about, where it's like you're interested in every single turn because you always get to do stuff. And you're playing out cards, and these cards will give you special abilities, like, oh, now this kind of thing is cheaper, or now you get to always get more money whenever you put out cattle. There'll be end game scoring, sometimes there'll be instant ones, and you're paying with them through resources. But one thing that's cool about this game is there's no actual physical resources. The resources are on this little canoe track. And the way you get resources by having your canoe at that resource. So if you need brick, you need to have your canoe there. If you need 2 brick, you have to have both your canoes there. And you're going up and down this little river there to get your canoes in the right spot. And then you can upgrade those spots so they're kind of always giving you at least 1 or something like that. And it's really, really good. There's also these levers that you can like use to, there's a lot going on in the game. Basically what I'm getting at. Whole bunch of different cards. It's very easy to play cards. There's multiple versions of the same card. You can have all those versions. You can stack this in like crazy ways and build these big crazy engines. And then at the end, once everyone's on their turn, depending on where you took the tile from, you're then going to move down the river a certain amount. Wherever you land in the river is going to give you a little bonus. It's nothing big. It'll be like draw a card or get a gold. Get something like that. Nothing big, get a point, something like that. I do kind of wish I think Maggie and Amy were talking about this. They wish the where you went on the river was more impactful.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I like the fact that it's just simple bonuses, but having that be more of a choice could make it more interesting. But the game's already pretty big, pretty long. I don't know if I need more complexity in that way.
Sure.
And then also going down the river is what's also going to time out the game. And it's just really, really fun. I really, really like the game. I like it a lot. The scoring is interesting. You score the game essentially 4 times, kind of like quarterly scoring. It's always very interesting to do so. You're trying to make these things work. You're building these big, crazy engines. There's, again, like kind of like area control, or at least like presence you're trying to have in the different areas on the board. I just really, really like it. It looks really good. It's like Clemens Franz doing his best, the Miko impression. And it works really well.
That is accurate.
I just think it looks cool. I really like it. I feel like Mike and I are the only ones who really like this game. One thing I will say is the game is too long. It's a 2-hour game at 2 players. At a 4-player game, especially if people are really thinking a lot,
5 hours.
It'll be like a 4-hour game. It's too long. I only ever really want to play it 2-player, but I really, really like it at 2-player a lot, and I do want to play it solo. I really, really like Boone Lake. I feel like we're on an island. I don't care. I like my island on the lake. And so Boone Lake is my number 66. I like it a lot.
Nice. My number 66, we played through every little bit of this game. Every last morsel of demons and things. It's Gloomhaven.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about?
Yes, we played all of Gloomhaven in a week. You can watch the video right here on it. We played through all of it as a challenge in 1 week.
Yes, we did.
We played through everything in that box. And it was a lot. So Gloomhaven is a classic dungeon delver. It's obviously very well liked. It's the #1 game of all time. People agree. It's very fun.
Frosthaven's giving people hands now. Gosh, I'm seeing nothing but Frosthaven all over the internet.
I can't wait to watch the ascent of that one because Gloomhaven built a really good foundation. I'm sure Frosthaven is literally better than Gloomhaven because they worked out certain kinks and stuff. This is a classic kind of dungeon delver where you're trying to battle stuff in different scenarios that take you through a story with some branching storylines and stuff, which is really fun. And for me, this game comes all down to the way you activate your character and do stuff. First of all, each character is very different from each other. They have different styles, different strengths and weaknesses. On a turn, you're going to play 2 cards, and the card's always broken down into a top half and a bottom half. And on your turn, you're going to activate the top half of one card and the bottom half of another card. You can do that whatever order you like. Typically, the top halves will have to do with attacking stuff. Typically, the bottom halves will have to do with moving around. There, of course, are going to be all sorts of cards you unlock and upgrade as you go that might change how things work, but that's a general sense that you get.
Yeah.
And it's all about that puzzle of like, okay, I really want to combo like the bottom half of this. If I do this on the top half, that's really cool, but then those cards are gone, and I won't get them back until I do a long rest or a short rest, in which case I might accidentally lose that card. Because you only have so much time in a scenario. You are burning time. Because when you do a long rest, you're going to have to trash a card out of that scenario, and you have fewer cards to go. You can do a little bit of healing, or you can short rest and you blind lose a card. And eventually you'll run out of cards, in which case you would get exhausted.
You would lose,
so it comes down to every scenario is kind of similar. You're walking into a thing, there's this type of thing, there's these wolves, and they might poison you. There's a million effects.
Yeah, you'll pull this lever or whatever,
splashy thing. There might be, you get to a certain spot and pull a lever, like you said. And it's just really fun to play with those cards and try to go. And as your character levels up, you get better and better cards. And you'll always choose a new card to add to your stack, but then you have to get rid of another one because you have a hand limit of 10 or 8 or whatever it is. You cannot have more cards than that. So you have to really kind of focus what you want your character to be, and that's where all the fun comes in. It's like, how does this character tick?
Yes.
What do I do? And when they level up, they start getting really strong.
And you have to learn your character. You sometimes you get a new character, you're just like, how does this work? And it always does work, and it works really well.
Just gotta figure it out.
But it's like you have to legitimately get better at playing your character, and I love that part of it.
Yeah, it's really cool. When you level up, you get super rad, and then eventually your character will retire. They have like a retirement. They're doing this thing, they're studying that, or they're trying to go on these adventures, and eventually they'll come to the point where they're at the end of their journey. You retire them, and you start a new character, and you're back at the beginning for the most part. There's a little bit of a level up situation, but you get to figure out a whole new character. It's just there's a reason why it's #1. It's huge. It's exciting. It's fun. There's a lot to explore. And it worked well. So again, Frosthaven is destined for #1. I cannot see a situation where it doesn't go to #1.
It would be, it would be weird. There'd be 3 Gloomhavens in the top 10,
which is a little crazy.
Say what you will about the BGG top 100 situation, but yeah, it's it'll be wild. Again, it's the most popular game on the planet. Like,
for a reason.
Like it or hate it, people love it.
Exactly. So that's number 66, Gloomhaven.
All right, let's get number 65.
My number 65 was mentioned in a previous list by Nick. It is a great convention game because you get a whole bunch of people in it, and it's actually best if you have a maximum player count of 6. This is Downforce.
Great.
This is a racing game that is light and bright. Doesn't get in its way. There's a lot of racing games, which I get. It's kind of cool that you're like getting into shifting gears and stuff. And I'm like, it just slows stuff down. I'm like, it's a
cool.
racing game. Just have it be fast and move along and get out. In this game, it's really fun because you'll be assigned a car, or if you're playing less than maximum player count, you'll have multiple cars possibly that you're going to bid on, and you want to try to bid on a car. Do you think you can get over the finish line first? However, you don't have to win the race to win the game because you're actually making bets on who you think is going to win. And if red's way off in the lead, and I have a bunch of cards that can push red, I might become team red and start betting that I think red's going to win and make some money that
table
way.
Stuff,
Yeah, and you're kind of just going through a race. The game comes down to what's really cool is when you play a card, any cards that are listed on that card and this amount of space that it shows must be moved the full amount of space possible.
Yes.
In the order that they're showing. You cannot choose to just move your card, no one else's. That doesn't work. So what really comes down to is you're trying to deliberately bottleneck parts of the track so that you're hopefully in front of that bottleneck and all the cars beneath the bottleneck can't get past. You're like, see ya, suckers. And that's where the fun kind of comes in. But there's like these loose alliances that get built because I'm like, you know what? We're blue and red. We're both doing pretty good. We both bet on ourselves secretly. You don't know who's bet on what. But like, maybe I'm going to help you out. Maybe you help me out. And it becomes these like little bit of a like teams that form at times. It's just really fun. It's light. It's easy to understand. Each card comes with a little bit of a power that allows you to break this rule or do that, which is really fun. But it's ultimately just easy, goes down smooth, and doesn't take too long. There's all these different tracks for it and stuff. Downforce has just like treated us well for a good long while.
It's great. That's my number 65. It's the perfect little 6-player racing game like that. It just goes over well. It's easy, and it's the perfect convention game.
I agree. That's 65 Downforce.
I'm number 65. I'm curious. I'll have to look after the fact, but this might be the biggest drop. But while still being like in my top 100, so something that's like, it went from like 99 to 200 something. But this is Empires of the North.
Oh wow, former number 3.
Former number 3. Yeah, last time we did this was number 3.
You're such a hater now.
I really like Empires of the North. I still do. I still love it. We played it not too long ago, and I was like, yep, this game's still great.
Good.
I just don't play. We don't play as much as we
were
used to.
really hot up on it 2 years ago. When it was fairly new still.
We were,
and I'm excited for that solo campaign.
Yes, I love Empires of the North. Empires of the North is a successor to Imperial Settlers, which is a successor to 51st State, which is a successor to Candyland, I believe. And so, a lot of successors. But you're essentially going to take a faction. There are a lot of different factions now. There was like 8 in the base game, which is also really nice. There's so many in the base game, and then there's been like 2 faction expansions.
I think so.
There's like 16 now.
16 odd factions.
They'll take a faction. Each faction has their own unique deck and their own unique kind of stuff that they do. They all do all sorts of different stuff, and you're playing out these cards. These cards will give you points. You'll have like these harvest cards, which will give you resources, which you'll use to like put out your cards, or on your card, like, hey, turn in food to get this points, or turn in this. You also can go out and sail. You can go to different islands and like get resources from those islands and like take those islands and stuff like that. Yeah. Lots of different stuff. Your little Empires in the North and stuff. But the thing I love about Empires in the North, and while it dropped quite a bit, considerably, it's just like every time we play, I'm literally just like, give me a random faction. Just give me a random faction. You take a random faction.
I'll figure out how it works.
And boom. And honestly, like I love, kind of talk about Gloomhaven. I love just like figuring out the faction and seeing how they work. And the factions have different complexities. So some are like, hey, these are hard. This is a harder faction to make work than say this one. But it's just like, to me, I'm like, yep, give me one of the Japanese factions. Give me that Egyptian faction. Give me that Roman one. Give me one of the base ones. I don't care. Just give me a faction, and let's go and let's see how it works. One thing I like about Empires of the North, too, particularly, like we pretty exclusively play it 2-player, is that the first to 25 points will trigger the end of the game, and it's a fast game.
It's a 3 or 4 round game max.
Maximum. Part of me almost wishes it was a little bit longer sometimes.
Arbitrarily set it longer, I wonder.
True. Yeah. Because it ends quicker than you think it's going to be, especially in a 2-player game. And it's just, which is kind of nice, though, because it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Not at all.
It actually could probably stay a little bit longer. I really love Empires of the North. I love the art style they have in that game. I think it's really, really fun. And again, it's just one of those games where I'm like, just give me a faction. I'm gonna play. It's kind of like Unmatched in that way we talked about a little while ago. I'm like, just give me a character. I'll just play with that. Like, I just want to see what happens. Give me a faction. I want to figure it out. I love Empires of the North. It dropped pretty considerably, 63 spots technically. What are you gonna do? It's really good. It's really, really good. I think it'll stay in my top 100 for a while.
It's not like it's slumming it. You know, it's doing just fine.
It's at 65. It's just fine. I really like Empires of the North, though. And honestly, just keep coming with more factions. We'll buy them every single time. I'm really excited about that solo campaign.
I can't wait.
Really excited about it.
That's 65s for both of us. So let's hit into 64.
Ooh. My number 64 is a game that I really like that Mike doesn't like that much. And I kind of want everything for it just because I just do. And this is Rum and Bones. Rum and Bones is a game I doesn't really like because it's a lot of dice rolling, and in the end, if you roll badly, you're probably going to lose, and that's just how it goes.
You're going to have a bad time.
While I also tend to roll quite badly, maybe not quite as bad as Mike does, but I tend to roll not great.
For whatever reason, it gets me more in this game than others. Yeah,
it does.
It's not a bad game. It's a game that it's trying to be, but sometimes I'm like, I just want to do something, and I'm doing nothing.
Yeah. So this is a game where you're going to take on. You have a pirate ship, and the other opponent has a pirate ship or many pirate ships, depending on what expansion you're playing with. And you're going broadside to each other, boom, just like this, and you're just and shooting at each other, and then you have different heroes. There is Rum Bones Season 1 and Season 2. Season 2 greatly improved a lot of stuff on Season 1.
Unplayable.
So we have Season 1. I still disagree with that, but it's so significantly better in Season 2. And there's like an upgrade pack that you can get to essentially upgrade your Season 1 to Season 2.
Which is weirdly the hardest thing of all time
for
us to track down.
Simon did people dirty because they said
they would be available, and they're like, never mind.
During the second Kickstarter, not to like get into this whole thing, but during the second Kickstarter, you couldn't get the upgrade pack unless you backed the Season 2. And I was like, I don't really want Season 2, I just want the upgrade pack. And they said, don't worry, it'll be at retail, and then they didn't make it at retail. So, whatever. But nonetheless, we ended up getting it at a convention. So we upgrade it, but essentially you have your different heroes. You have 3 different heroes that you have, and there's like a gunner, or like your captain, or like your brute, like your big strong person, and stuff. And then they have these abilities, and you can spend money. You're getting money by like eliminating other people's heroes, by eliminating the other crew, and you can use that money to essentially upgrade all of your abilities and stuff.
Awesome.
It's just really good. It's got this, I think they're called MOBA games. We don't really play video games, but it's a game where you don't get to control your troops. Like, you get to control your heroes, but your troops are just they're just walking forward doing this. That's what they're doing. They're just on a collision course forward, going after objectives. You're trying to knock down their mast. You're trying to take out their armory, things like that, getting points. There's also, you can like release the Kraken and stuff, and then you can each be fighting the Kraken. Whoever does the killing blow will get like points for that. I just really, really like it. I love, love, love the minis in this game. The first one was like very much like humans versus like your kind of like
skeleton
Pirates of the Caribbean type crew. It's very Pirates of the Caribbean where you're swinging from boat to boat or falling in the water if you're Mike. And there's like a ton of different factions, like a lot of different factions. Especially the second season, they went very much more into like the Davy Jones, where there's like a shark faction.
Big time.
And I've always said, like, if I ever found Rum and Bones, like all of it for very cheap, I would buy it. If someone out there wants to get rid of it, wants to sell it to me for cheap, hit your boy up. I don't know. I'm very enamored of this game. We don't play it very often because Mike doesn't really like it.
Yeah, I'll give it this, man. I will, even though I end up frustrated and stuff, every so often, I'll be like, you know what? I'm super down.
Yeah, let's play it. Everyone's play it. Then I'll bring it to conventions. There's a couple people at conventions that I know who like it, who I'll play with.
But it is fun.
But I love it. I love the minis. It's one of those games where like I will have this game fully painted at some point in my life. I might be 80 when I do it, but it'll be done. But that's for 64 Rum and Bones. I really, really like it, even if it's not Mike's favorite.
That's awesome. That's totally cool, man. My number 64 is Keyflow. Basically the same game. This is a card drafting version of Keyflower. Now, we famously enjoy Keyflow better than Keyflower.
Get wrecked.
We're in the minority there and stuff. I really enjoy Keyflower as well. We don't own it, but I play it on BGA and stuff. Yeah, basically that's it. So Keyflow is a card drafting version. Does a lot of the same stuff. In Keyflower or Keyflow, you are basically going through a year in a town. You're building up a town over the space of a year. And the types of cards you're getting in general in the spring and the summer are going to be very much buildings that allow you to produce resources and stuff like that. You can produce like wood and steel and gold and stuff like that. Thematic things, thematic cubes, cylinders. And then in the fall, and then in particular the winter seasons, you're not going to get buildings that help you produce stuff. You're going to get buildings and things that are going to score. So basically that comes down to you need to get resources to those buildings.
Yes.
And there's this kind of spatial puzzle in Keyflower. It's much more dynamic because they're all hexagons and stuff. But in this one, it's like if I produce resources on my quarry, those stones and stuff are on the quarry. That's where they were created. So I need to get delivery vehicle buildings and stuff. We start off with one, you get more. We can start shipping those resources from card to card to card. It's 1, 2, 3 movement. and you need to get them moved down into the spots that they're going to be valuable for you. In the autumn in particular, there's a bunch of buildings where you can just toss in as much of this certain type of resource as possible to all be worth like a point at the end of the game. So the first half of the game is all building up all these resources. The second half is getting the scoring cards out. They're going to maximize the sort of engine you built in the first half. And then it comes down to, like, at the very end of the game, maximizing your scoring, because all those winter cards and stuff are going to be like, hey, for every like wood and steel, you get these points and stuff. But if I have another card that would score for wood and steel or whatever, anything I commit to this first scoring card cannot be reused. Yeah. So you have to try to like
you're min-maxing,
like, okay, I want my cattle to go over here because that's the most useful thing. I'm going to forego this card over here. That's fine. I'm going to, my meeples can score the most if they're attached to this scoring card. And you're just trying to figure out, like, what's the most points I could possibly eke out of the resources I managed to build. Yeah. So the card drafting is really fun. I like putting out those all those buildings and stuff, starting to produce those resources and then getting those resources moved around. There's a couple things that make this less cutthroat than Keyflower, where I can make use of Nick's buildings, but he doesn't get blocked as a result of that, whereas in Keyflower you can. But you're really paying attention to your neighbors and like, what buildings do they have? What buildings do they have? And I'm going to try to use their building to produce resources because I don't have that building. It's a lot of fun stuff, and it goes down really quickly and pretty dang smooth. So Keyflow is a good one for us.
It's real good. I like Keyflow
really
a lot.
Like it a lot.
Yeah, that was our number 64. Let's get to number 63.
Number 63 is continuing kind of press your luck Quacks of Quedlinburg adjacent game. This is Cubitos.
Oh, I was like, what else can I
do? Cubitos
right, you're right,
is a racing game.
It's Racing Quacks.
Racing Quacks of Quedlinburg. We've had Battle Quacks, Racing Quacks.
Here's the thing, it's a good system.
It's a good system. This is ultimately a deck building game that uses dice instead of cards, but it does function like a deck builder. Because you're going to have a pool of dice, you're going to roll and stuff, and then whatever doesn't get used is going to kind of stay up in that area, and then you're going to kind of refill your hand. But eventually, all the stuff that gets used, you'll need to draw more dice from your player board and run out, and you'll kind of then shuffle them over and then start to draw from them again. So in this game, you're going to have this big pool of dice, and it'll grow and grow and grow as the game kind of goes. And you're going to roll them out, and the way it works is a lot of the dice, most of the dice, I mean, at max will have 3 faces and 3 blanks. I think that's the best dice.
I think so, yeah.
So most have 1 face and 5 blanks, or 2 and 4, or maybe 3 and 3. When you go to roll your dice, anything that rolls the face is a success. You can kind of set it off to the side.
Yeah.
And then you're going to make a choice whether you want to keep rolling or stop. If you have 3 or more faces that have successfully rolled, and you go to roll again, and you go all blanks, you bust. You're out. But if you roll at least 1 successful face, you get to keep going. So there's that push of like, I really want to get more money because I want to buy better dice. If I get these footprints, it allows me to move, which is ultimately our goal, is to win the race by getting around the track once. There's a lot of fun decisions that go into like, do I keep rolling these dice? If you roll the dice and bust out, the one thing that's nice is any amount of dice that you don't want to hang on to, you can discard and just keep like your best dice for the next turn. So you can kind of set yourself up for the future a little bit, which is cool. And then the different types of dice have different abilities. And again, much like a Wonderland's War or Quacks of Quedlinburg, there's different cards you can swap in.
6, I think, for each die?
There's 6 for each die. So the orange die can do 6 different things. Again, they'll be kind of similar, but they do slightly different things from game to game to game. But you don't only have to change out the reference card, and then the dice just stay the same. Exactly.
It's one of the best things you can do in a game.
There's different maps you can play on. Yeah, there's a lot of variety just based on
there's
those
like,
cards
and then
maps.
in the back of the book, there's like essentially, not like a campaign, but like kind of like a, hey, like,
if you want a game that's going to be like really combo-tastic, play with these cards and this map.
Yeah, if you want a game that's going to be kind of mean, play with these ones. And you can kind of go through like a big Grand Prix kind of
curate the game experience.
But there's 4 different maps. Like, again, like 6 or 7 abilities for each die. Yeah. The variability is like through the roof.
It's really cool. Yeah. It's really fun. It's this weird world where everything is made of cubes. There's like a cheese person that's also a cube.
Yeah.
And like that's one of the types of dice you can buy.
John D, why? Why the cubes?
I love it. It's so strange with the cubes, but it's a really fun racing game. There's a lot of kind of, again, with the push your luck element, there's a sort of a catch-up mechanism that are kind of Quacks of Quedlinburg-esque. So if you like Quacks of Quedlinburg, we tend to think you'll probably enjoy Cubitos because it's just a push your luck game that's kind of silly and fun. And you buy better dice. and hopefully those will roll more exciting things. There's that kind of ramp-up effect, but it's just a really fun racing game. That's my 63 Cubito.
My number 63 is a game that I'm curious of where this one's going to stay. Whether I could see it going higher or I could see it going lower. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm very hot on it right now, which is why it's on the list, and that is Terracotta Army. Ooh. Terracotta Army is a very new game,
yes, it is.
And so maybe this is just, I'm very hot on it right now, and that's why it popped up on there, but hey, that's what it is. Terracotta Army is a new game by Board and Dice, and I really, really like it. It's about building the Terracotta Army, which is a terracotta army. And essentially what you're doing is you're building these statues, these terracotta statues in this mausoleum, and you are doing actions based on this like action wheel. There's 3 levels of the action wheel. Those actions will turn, so they're not always going to be the same. And you're essentially putting one of your workers down, one of your artisans, your craftsmen, and then you can turn into artisans. And then you essentially get to do the 3 actions that are in that spot. You start at the top and then go down. And the actions are pretty darn. I was just on BGG's podcast with Candace, and we were talking about Terracotta Army. And one thing that's nice is like it's all pretty darn intuitive. Like this spot, you'll get clay. Cool. This spot here, you get to turn clay in to make statues. Okay, cool. This spot gives you money. This spot allows you to hire a master. It's kind of like under your employee, and they will essentially give you special abilities that you can do, and everyone can hire them. This one allows you to put out a specialist. These specialists will go into the mausoleum, and they essentially will score in different ways. And the cool thing is everyone's building in this mausoleum, and whenever you build a statue, you're going to put one of your colored bases on there, and then that's your statue. But when you put the statue into the mausoleum, if you have the statue's matching weapons, so like a spearman, if you have a spear, you can turn that spear down to do that spearman's special ability when you place them in there. Some will just give you some extra coins. Some will allow you to move around stuff in the mausoleum. They do different stuff when you put them in there. And then when you put them in there, they also can score. You'll score when you put them in there. And then like, say the archer, because they're like a ranged statue, they want to be far away from everything else. And so when you activate them, when you put them in, every blank space between them and the nearest statue will gain an extra point. Right. And so there's all these different ways of why you want to put them in there, but then at the end of the game, you want similar statues grouped together. Yeah. And you want to have dominance in that group. You want to have more of your statues than anyone else. There's also these inspectors that are going around the mausoleum looking at stuff, and you want dominance in their row or column. There's a lot to think about, and one thing I really like about the game is in a 2-player game particularly, and you can do this in a higher player count game too, but 2-player is like you can really manipulate the mausoleum. You can really move stuff around. You can really kind of
block people off. You can get in. Nick's been building this group, and I get in on it. And you can mess with stuff in different ways.
It's very, very interesting, and it's one of these. I've actually only ever played it at 2. I'm curious at 3 or 4. I think 3 will probably be the best. As many Euro games are. 4, I feel like it'd be a little bit too much going on, but I really, really like it. I think it's really outstanding, and it's really, really fun. I like Terracotta Army a lot, and yeah, I think they did a really good job. And again, I'm curious to see. I could see it going higher. I could also see it being like, yeah, it's good, but like kind of just drops down. I don't really know, but right now I'm really hot on it, and I did my list right now, which is how lists go.
That's how it goes. It's
because
a snapshot in time.
Tomorrow my top 100 would be very different because that's just how lists go. So right now it's number 63. I'm curious where it's going to go. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. That's Terracotta Army 63. Let's get into 62.
Number 62 is a game that Mike talked about a while ago now, I think at this point, but nonetheless, this is Horrified American Monsters, or Horrified. I do prefer American Monsters over Horrified.
Sure.
I just think the monsters are more interesting, but nonetheless, both the Horrifieds are great. I hope they keep making a ton more, because I think it's an outstanding system. But this is a cooperative pick 'em and deliver game where you are going to have a certain amount of monsters depending on how difficult you want the game to be, and all those monsters will need to be overcome or beaten or figured out or whatever in some way.
Right.
So the Jersey Devil can take on, if you're playing American Monsters, the Jersey Devil can take on essentially other people's appearances, essentially, and so you have to find out which one of these townsfolk is the Jersey Devil and then confront them and stuff. If you're playing against the Mummy in the original one, you have to like go and like smash their sarcophaguses by turning in these different things, just all different kinds of stuff that makes sense for that monster, right? Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, you got to try and constantly keep them separated. You know,
you got to bring them back to humanity.
Exactly. So lots of different kinds of stuff, but it's essentially a pick 'em and deliver game where on the board there's going to be these different items that have strength and a different colors as well, and all the monster stuff you're going to need to turn in. They might be like, hey, you need to turn in 3 yellow items with a total value of like 15. So it's like, oh, that's pretty high. You need to get some higher ones. So like you're trying to get those. There's also going to be like some random townsfolk that you need to essentially escort to, like, oh, this person's got to get to here, but they also might get destroyed and eaten by a monster.
Hopefully not.
Which is not good because that increases the terror. If terror gets to the top, you lose. So it's got kind of some pandemic-y stuff going on there, but it's really fun because there's like 6 or 7 monsters in each game. You can switch them out. There are some that are more difficult or more complex than other ones, and especially the American monster version of it, which has like American or North American cryptids. It's just so cool. It's just a cool way, and like Bigfoot, you're like trying to assemble the blurry Bigfoot picture and stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really fun stuff.
Really, really cool. And I think it works really well. It's simple enough where you can kind of guide new players into it. And so I feel like you can use it more or less as a gateway game because it is cooperative. So it's just really, really good. It just works really well. Again, like I said, I hope they do more. I honestly have more cryptids. Have cryptids from different parts of the world. Or have more movie monsters. Or choose some other, just have like a straight up horror one. Have like Jason and Freddy Krueger. I don't know. I don't care.
Why not? I'm super down.
Go for it. It's Ravensburger. They probably won't do that. That's a little too much horror. But you know, here's the thing. Go for it. I think it'd be cool. I really like Horrified. So Horrified American Monsters is my number 62. What's your 62?
My 62 is all about decorating a house together, which can be a tricky proposition. This is Decorum. Decorum is all about, we got to decorate this house.
Yeah.
We all have a secret agenda for how we need this house to be.
It's true.
We're not exactly going to talk about it because them's feelings and feelings is scary. So we are going to passive-aggressively place things in the house or move stuff in the house and say, like, how do you feel about this? This is ultimately a group deduction game because the house has to be decorated in a certain way so that everyone's goals can be met. And there is an answer to this puzzle. There is a way that, yes, the house will be happy.
Always get there.
But we all have different rules. Like for me, nothing blue downstairs. You can't paint blue, can't have any blue items, no blue, period. You might be like, I can't have any lamps in the upstairs left bedroom. No lamps.
Yep.
You know, can't do it.
Can't do it.
Other people might have stuff that's like, you need to have more red items than yellow items or some different things like that. And on your turn, it's really simple. Either add an element to a room, either a curio or a lamp.
Yeah, whatever.
Or you can remove an item from a room, or you can basically swap something for a different color of the same, like a red curio for a blue or whatever. You can do that swap, or of course you can paint a wall.
True.
All walls will be painted some color at all times. So the really fun thing is, like, you'll make a change to the house, and then you go, how's everyone feel about that?
I'm just like, I hate that.
Yeah, and you can't say why, because you can't come up with your things, but you say, I hate that, I love that, or you're like, that's fine, whatever, you know? I don't care. And it gets into, for us, the fun is the group buy-in, or the kind of 2 players, the main experience for this game, of the role play of like, why would you ever think I'd like that in this house? You know, and getting really into just like the shade throwing of it. It's like, you're out of your mind if you think that curio is going there. And then I'm trying to figure out like, okay, like I thought he wanted red upstairs. So I'm like, what's wrong with this curio? You know, you're trying to figure out. It's like, well, it might be the fact that it's a retro curio, and I don't want no retro stuff upstairs, you know? So I'm trying to figure that out. And a few key points in the game, we'll have heart-to-hearts where you guys basically can reveal, like, one of your conditions for the house. I'm like, okay.
We can't have red rooms on the right side of the house.
All right, now I got it, now I got it.
That's good. Okay, now I can
reveal something.
I can make my thing work because, okay, I can put this here.
Then that satisfies my goal.
Because it's possible. It's always possible.
It's always possible. There's always an answer to the puzzle. And that's really satisfying to find, and it's really fun to talk as much smack to each other as possible along the way. Yeah. And buying into that, the dynamics that form, and then getting to the answer of that puzzle is really fun. So it comes with like campaigns, so you're going to go through escalating difficulty puzzles and stuff. It's mostly meant for like a 2-player experience, but you can play 3 and 4 player. And there's a series of envelopes there to unlock. And it's just a big kind of campaign deduction game about decorating a house. It's super simple mechanically. Co-op deduction is really fun, so Decorum's my number 62.
All right, let's get into the last one, 61, and we're done with this one, Trash Games.
My number 61 is a Reiner Knizia legacy game by the name of My City.
Yeah.
This is a polyomino tile laying game that you play.
My Island, higher or lower than this?
It's going to be higher, for sure. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait for My Island. I want to play so bad. So My City is a polyomino tile laying game where you are... You're given basically at the beginning of the campaign you're all murderers. You're given simple rules about like you basically don't want to have any rocks showing at the end of the game. You want to surround trees and leave them showing. You can score some points that way. There's a river that goes through the middle of your board and you can't cross that. You can't bisect that. You have to build on either side of it and stuff. There's like a few key rules. And you're going to kind of play this like tile-laying game, and the game will end effectively once someone cannot legally play a tile anymore.
Yeah.
There's different colors that give you different things and stuff like that. But the game starts off pretty basic. And the game is broken down into these 8 chapters, and you'll play 3 games in each chapter. And each game is like 25 minutes. Very quick, very easy. And then when you get to the start of chapter 2, all of a sudden there's an envelope that gets opened, stickers might emerge, and different things are going to forever change. Yeah. Rules are going to change. The whole game is going to kind of change in terms of like what you're doing here as you're kind of progressing through time in this sort of like valley between mountains and forests and stuff. And it's really fun to sticker up that board, change the landscape. So now your board is very different than my board, have different things to focus on, because each chapter will sort of have like a focus to it. And then maybe that thing will kind of go away, or it'll just change in the future, or what have you. But there's a lot of really fun...
It's so good.
Really fun stuff to have to do in the game. So we really enjoyed it. We played it through it with my wife. Every Monday we'd play through a chapter. You play 3 games kind of back to back. And just the evolution of stuff. But it's a big campaign game that isn't so big and isn't so convoluted that like if you don't play for a week, you're not going to forget how to play. No, right? You're not going to forget what was going on. So it was actually digestible. And I was like, man, this is the first campaign game that we've actually played not by doing a challenge and playing it as fast as we can. Yes. We just played it naturally week by week by week, and that's why I'm so excited for My Island. Yeah. And on top of that, the main thing is like My City we bought for $35. We got 8 weeks of entertainment for 3 people for a grand total of $35. That is insane.
Absolutely insane.
That's such a good deal. Yeah. And it's even cheaper now. You can find it for like $30. And I'm like, it works so well. It's so fun. You can play it on BGA. You can play the whole campaign over there. My Island is coming out, which is a kind of like a hexamino tile laying. I don't know what you're doing in it, but I cannot wait. I'm going to grab that and we're going to play through it as soon as possible.
Our friend Matthew, who is a humongous, he did the theme song for this. He's a humongous My City fan. He likes the My City roll and ride. He thinks it's better than My City.
Yeah, we have that over here. We haven't even tried it yet, but I'm super excited for that. It's like a little mini campaign. So anyway,
it's not on my list because I think just because we only have played it once, obviously, but nonetheless, My City is crazy good.
It's crazy good. What is your 61?
My 61 is Mike's... I can't remember when it happened, but you're number 1 last time, I guess, maybe? But this is Teotihuacan.
It's so good, girl.
City of the Gods.
Way too low, by the way.
Teotihuacan is... I've never liked it as much as Mike has. I do like Teotihuacan quite a bit. This is a dice rondelle game where you are moving dice around the board. And wherever your dice land, you're going to pick up your die on your turn, you're going to move it a certain amount of like stations or whatever, and wherever it lands, you're going to do that action. And depending on the pip value of the die and then how many dice you have there, you essentially get to do stronger versions of that action. So it's like this interesting concept with the rondelle because you want your dice to be clumped together because then you can do like a crazy good action there. Right. But then you need to then spread them out again because on your turn you only move 1 die. So it's like this weird kind of like push and pull of like clumping stuff together in very specific places to do some big thing that you need or want to do, and then having to spread them out and having like a couple turns that are like less cool for a while until you can find another way to converge them all together. Yeah. Some of the spots are just going to give you resources. Some of the spots are going to allow you to build certain things. You can build like different parts of like you want to call it the Path of the Dead. What's it actually called though?
The Avenue of the
Avenue of the Dead. Path of the Dead is Lord of the Rings.
That's
close enough. The Stone of Erech. That's the Path of the Dead, folks. But nonetheless, and then you're also building up the pyramid, the pyramid of Teotihuacan, so that's you're building up that, and that's going to take different resources, and you're just going around and around and around with your dice. You can unlock more dice. One thing I do like about the game, though, is like generally in like worker placement games, if there's a situation where it's like, hey, you start with 2 workers, you can get up to 3 more. Almost every single worker placement game, I feel like if you don't do that, you're going to be at a very significant disadvantage.
Sure.
Whereas
I feel like get a couple of them.
Yeah, or this in Teotihuacan, I feel like you can get away with not doing that, which I actually think is like pretty nice.
I agree, and in fact, with like the cocoa cost of stuff, like if you go to an action spot that has a bunch of different colors, including your own, you have to pay cocoa. So having like 1 less die means there's a little. You're in your own way a little less. Yeah.
So it's one of those situations where